Happy Friday! Hey Prodigy, hey Danny. Let me know if music and voice, everything like that is good and whatnot. But yeah. Sounds good? Okay. So we're gonna do a little bit of free draw because my D&D, like, other players on my D&D group finally gave me, like, their character descriptions. I did not die. We're okay. Kaisa's still alive. I could still draw her. Yeah. We made it out. It was real tense. It was real tense for a little bit because, there was a point where the room we were in that was locked, so we had to figure out a way out, was slowly catching on fire. And so the DM would mark certain zones that would basically, in the next round, if you started your turn in that zone, you take a certain d8 10 damage. And I was at 4 hit points. And I could not get out of the zones. If he rolled any amount above a 4, I would have basically been revived and then instantly knocked out in the same, like, span of minutes. But thankfully, my teammates had some excellent things up their sleeve, so we all managed to get out. It was quite nice. I had a religious crisis. Kaisa had a religious crisis. It was all good. Yeah, it didn't go the way I was expecting, because, like, I was coming at it kind of, like, combatively, and he was just like, you must make a choice, and I'm like, to kill or not to kill, like, is that the choice? But I actually decided to not, go through with what I had originally planned to do, which was to, kill the guy that was about to kill me. So that was pretty unexpected, because there's a whole lot of implications that go along with that. I did get talked out. I did. I don't. It was a little bit of a struggle because I'm like, if you were to ask me, I think my character would absolutely still kill him. But it's more so that, like, I think there was, like, a little bit of hope that was enough for me to feel like she might act on it. Because she's not, like, she's not classically this character that I think would have been okay committing to something as, like, dire as that. I think she's far more of someone who wants to find alternative solutions. And there was a hope, which didn't end up panning out. Because originally when I spared him, I was like, okay, maybe we can work something out and he'll, like, be down to, instead of being, like, a dictator, essentially, he'll be down to, like, kind of help rebuild this hometown that my character comes from, into something that's more resilient and stronger, against, like, the forces that he basically invited to the city. But I think my DM really wanted me to get rid of him. So he kept trying to, like, pull him away. Not in the way of, like, get rid of him, like, kill him, but, like, he's having him no longer be a part of the arc to end the arc because we were moving on. So it was like he at no point was receptive to me. I think he still has narrative relevance, because his conspiracy is not over yet. But at the very least, like, he was not receptive to my character asking for, like, a compromise, right? So it was in the way of, like, he's made his moral choice, and as a player, I don't think there was a way I could have convinced him. And plus, like, the NPCs were even like, we can handle it, we don't need him. And then, like, the other players were like, he can go. Like, we don't need him to be on this island or whatever. And I'm like, okay, all right. So the original reason why I spared the character didn't end up panning out, but I guess it worked out in the end. So I guess we'll see if he comes back. I'm convinced he will. I'm convinced my DM's like saving him for like a big boss, because he was really annoying to fight. So I'm pretty sure he's gonna bring him back, probably in some really terrible way. It's an anchor. One of our players has a giant anchor, which does so much damage. She's like our resident tank. But her main weapon is this like giant anchor that she stole. It really fits with the theme of the campaign. Sheldon, thank you for the tier 1 sub for 10 months. I am glad to. I don't think she was... I think he would have tried to help her not die. But yeah, I'm really glad that it didn't come to that. Because I would have been really sad. Like, I was like, trying to think. I was trying to think, like, you know, what kind of character would I want to play if I couldn't continue to play Kaisa? And I just got like so sad. I was like, I don't want to play any other character. Like, I like this one and I don't want to design another one. I had actual problems designing or trying to design like a different character. I like couldn't think of anything, or I was like, oh, you know, it'd be really cool if I could be like a Druid of the Stars, I think was something I was looking at, which is mechanically not relevant to our party comp, but I just like the idea of it. But I just couldn't think of anything. I was like, oh no, this is so hard. So I'm really glad that she didn't have to die. Yeah, it is homebrew. As far as I know, I think it is homebrew. Am I still experimenting with Procreate? Well, I haven't really had to use Procreate very much lately, so not particularly. I would not say I've done anything with Procreate in a while. Hey, Luna! I have to tilt this. Yeah, she survived. We're good. We're fine. And it ended up not being as, like, I don't know, I guess, like, depressing as I thought it was gonna be. So part of me is kind of rethinking the design I had for her, because there was a kind of a level of, like, seriousness with her redesign that I don't think she necessarily embodies with what happened during the session. But it's still, I'm still gonna change her costume, I think, because it's a good time for that. But yeah, no, she is okay. I am not being forced to make a totally new character. Thank God. We had a similar issue, more so that one of our players for a while couldn't play, and then every time he came back, well, his first one died. His second one sort of just kind of fell off in terms of interest, and then his third one, he played one session, his character was rolling death saves, and he's like, hey, this party needs a better cleric, because my character's multi-classed into Forge Cleric, but she doesn't do a lot of, like, she doesn't have a lot of strong healing spells, and so he's like, hey, this party needs a cleric, and so he killed the one that he had for one session, and now he's playing his long-standing life cleric character, which, you know, is certainly very useful, but it is his last character change according to the DM, it seems. Hey, Vacato. How many people play in the group? There are 4 players, I think. And there's a DM PC that runs with it, or several DM PCs that run with us, but there are 4 players. your clothes and outfits on any pieces? Thank you. Any suggestions to practice and improve drawing clothing and drapery? Clothes and drapery and fabric are one of those things where I think the only thing you can do is study from life or from references. It's a much more technical thing, I think, and if you have any like real issues with it, the best thing you can do is find like actual examples of it, either in the pose that you want or in kind of like the fabric that you want, and really try to commit to memory like what kind of thing, how does this piece of fabric or piece of cloth behave in certain circumstances, like a certain pose or whatnot, or like a certain fit. I think it's just one of those things where unless you have kind of a knowledge for how kind of the physics of fabric works, like the idea of like tension, where do folds come from, how are folds created, what kinds of folds happen in certain types of fabrics, in what situations, it's difficult to do much else except like make it up. And I assume that making it up has not been going well if you're kind of trying to improve on that. So my suggestion is kind of try to really narrow down like what you are trying to commit to memory about fabric stuff. Generally, I recommend learning how do different types of fabrics affect how much like the surface is affected, like how much of the sort of folds and like wrinkles and stuff like that, how much of that, or is the quantity of that different or affected by the type of fabric, the style of how the fabric is woven or how the fabric is sewn and patterned out, what kinds of movement, what kinds of poses, or you know, types of like production effect, even if, you know, it's like even if it's two fabrics are very similar in terms of texture and weave, if you sew it in a certain way or you have it on a certain type of garment, does that change sort of the context for like what kind of wrinkles appear, and is like the larger the surface area that it's stretched over, does that like smooth it out or make it even more wrinkly, like all that kind of stuff. The more you understand kind of the basic facts of that, the easier it is for you to start making kind of like educated guesses about how fabric should behave when you yourself are just kind of trying to draw it in your own work. Outside of actually using consistent references every time, you're basically just trying to piece together through context clues, like, what is the behavior of this piece of fabric under these conditions? And that's all you're really doing when you're trying to draw clothes without reference, is just trying to anticipate that kind of like, I guess, using your knowledge of the physics of fabric to then give you clues about, oh, that this is how big the wrinkles should be, or these folds should look like this and they should be smoother or sharper depending on, you know, what you understand about how fabric behaves. So yeah, my suggestion is primarily, if you don't have any ideas for that, start with photo references. If you kind of have an understanding of how fabric behaves and you kind of understand like different types of fabrics, then it's easier for you to then start to specifically analyze what about your interpretation of it is not working. And you can look at how other people do it to give you a better idea of what shorthands you can use. Or you can go back to actually looking at fabric and saying, you know, what am I getting wrong? What am I Or what nuance am I missing to this that would improve, like, the overall result? So that's my very long-winded answer about that. What did the PCs do? Just kind of fill up a spot? Yeah, they sometimes help with story stuff, like narrative stuff. They sometimes help with combat. They're very helpful in combat, actually. So they're nice. But they're kind of also just there for story purposes because we are doing a pirate campaign. And so pirates need a crew. And they are basically part of the crew that the player characters were not originally a part of beforehand. One of the DM PCs is the captain of the ship as well. Wondering if you live off your art and how that works? Yeah, so for the longest time I was doing freelance. So basically I was a contract worker where I don't get anything like employee benefits or healthcare or anything like that, but companies will temporarily or indefinitely have me on contract to do either a single piece of work or do kind of be like on staff for them. But my pay is based on hours worked versus a salary. So I did that for a while, basically working with either independent clients, working with companies, studios, working with private commissioners. And that's all very much like your personal handling of like talking and communicating with clients, of reaching out to like prospective businesses if that's like something that you'd like to do, managing your own finances and all that kind of stuff. Lately I have started to work more for a more formal like kind of job, sort of salary-based employment. So in those instances, working full-time, I do get stuff like employee benefits, such as like vacation time. I get healthcare, all that kind of stuff. But I am basically in a binding contract with the company that says like I can't work with competitors. I can't. Sometimes they'll say you can't freelance at all. Some companies do, some companies don't. I'm working at least a certain amount of hours per week. So with hourly stuff, I could ostensibly work far more and be compensated for that. With full-time stuff, I'm not typically you're not paid for work outside of the full-time period. And unless my employment is terminated, unless I am a quit or whatever, I am employed ostensibly for the foreseeable future of the company. So I've done both, and I do live off of my art full time. And there are a lot of different ways that you can go about this, really. Like, at this point, there are options for you if you want to be an artist. Like, if you don't want to work for a company and do the whole 9-to-5 thing, you can do stuff like starting up like a, again, like a freelance kind of contractor sort of thing. You could do, you can own a business, right? You can have like a store where you sell like physical or maybe just digital work. You can have like a Patreon, you can be a content creator. Like, there's a lot of different ways to do it. But I absolutely only make money through my work, whether or not that's passive or active income. So Twitch counts as passive, because, like, based on who subscribes or maintains their subscription, I get paid out a certain amount per month. Patreon counts as passive, YouTube counts as passive if you do, like, content on there, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully that explains a little bit about that. Boom, thank you for the Twitch Prime sub. How do you get the patience to make those line arts? Thank you. I think it's a lot easier now to be patient with it, since I am kind of creating everything as I go. So there's always an element of like, oh, I don't know where this is gonna go next, and I don't know if this is gonna look good or whatnot. So the fact that I have to kind of be actively thinking and making all these decisions makes it a lot less like, oh, I just gotta reline all of these things that I drew already, and sometimes I don't get the right one. I don't know. I think the way that I draw makes it a lot easier for me to have the patience. Because if I don't, then there's not gonna be a drawing there. As long as it doesn't conflict, like, licensing-wise. Yeah. Some companies are more strict than others about what work you can do outside of, well, outside of work, I guess. If I were to take, like, professional contract jobs, I'd have to clear it with the legal team, about whether or not their IP is in competition with the IP that I'm working on. So, like, when I was working with WotC, or Wizards of the Coast, if I had actually been employed with them, I would not be able to personally publish or work on anything that has anything to do with tabletop games, has anything to do with fantasy, unless I had previously cleared with their legal team that it is not in direct competition with Wizards. It has absolutely nothing to do with Wizards, and Wizards has nothing to do with, like, the marketing, the PR, like, the public stance and the public-facing aspects of that. Some companies are a lot less strict about it. Some companies are just like, yeah, just don't, like, work on anything in the same genre. I would have to be very, very clear that the work that I post has absolutely nothing to do with Wizards. It's not Wizards sponsored content. It's not even relevant to Wizards. It is, yeah, it's like, it can be pretty strict, it can be looser, just depends. But it's kind of difficult because with wizards, like, their whole thing is fantasy. Yeah, I'd say that, like, it's a lot more common now to find artists that are working full-time and making pretty decent money off of their work. It really depends on what you prioritize, right? Because I was totally okay, like, working in a studio, but some people absolutely do not, and that's a personal choice. So you have to really decide, like, what's, you know, the thing that best suits, like, your kind of financial goals and whatnot. I did freelance for a while because I started working when I was younger and I couldn't actually, like, be employed. But for me, I didn't know how easy or how consistent I would be able to keep up. It would have. It absolutely would have, yeah. Which is why I waited while that was going on. Because I would not have been able to say that I was the one that did it. Yeah, it depends on, like, for someone like me, I'm okay working in a more corporate fashion if it means that I have far more financial security, I guess. So freelance was just kind of something where it was like, I don't know if I have, like, the personal stamina to make this work. I think I'm gonna try and shoot for something that's a little bit more stable. At least for me. Not to say that freelancing isn't, like, a viable way to have to, you know, develop a life kind of yearly income, but I just didn't think I would have the energy for it. 2 to 3 months. I mean, you can make a god tier portfolio in a week if you, like, had the you know, intensity about it, but, like, it really depends on what you spend those 2 to 3 months doing, you know. I would say that if it's for, like, a larger company and you don't feel super confident about it, giving yourself more time and more runway is usually better. But again, like, it really depends on what kind of stuff you're putting into it, how long you think it would take you to make stuff that's up to snuff for the company that you're looking for. I don't pretend to know what Riot's portfolio expectations are. I don't really know, like, I don't have any visibility in terms of, you know, because every team is different, I assume, there. So I have no idea what type of expectations they have for certain teams, certain positions, certain jobs. But if you can make the kind of work that you're missing in your portfolio, and you think you can really hunker down and get that done and do it in, like, a way that is not compromising quality, not compromising style or flair or whatnot, and you feel like you can accomplish that pretty regularly, then, like, yeah, I mean, 2 and 3 months is not a crazy amount of time, but it's also not an impossible amount of time. Hey, Wes. How old the art you haven't is in your. I mean, if there's like clear style differences, then that's definitely something to consider. But like they're not. If you don't put the dates on it, like, and it doesn't look that different, like they're not going to care that you put something in there that was like from a year ago versus like something that you did yesterday. Like, yes, you should be putting your most recent work in there because it should be the most updated, like, view of your work. But if they don't have access to that, they'll just judge it based on the quality of the work that they see. Because, I mean, they can't really do anything but that, so... Again, it's like, can you accomplish what you want to accomplish in that given amount of time? That's all that matters, right? If you don't think you can, then give yourself more runway. But if you are very clear about what you want to be putting in that portfolio, you're confident in the fact that you can nail the kind of quality level, you can nail it in terms of style or idea generation or like just design and stuff like that in 2 to 3 months, like that's all you really need if you are very efficient about it. I'm a boba person. It's like this type of, well, it's more so the way that it's prepared. It's basically a type of tea drink, mainly because they add things into it like tapioca pearls, lychee jelly, aloe jelly. Like it's more so that it is often sweet tea, or certain types of tea-based drinks, or juice or smoothies or whatever, but it has either boba pearls, which are tapioca pearls, or other types of add-ons and stuff. It's a form of drinking tea that is, I think, originally from Taiwan, and they have been very popular overseas. What's different about the paint tool side brushes compared to Photoshop? Every program is, well, programmed and coded differently. And so certain programs will have a very different kind of, I guess, just feeling when it comes to using their brushes. It's hard to explain. To me, Psy feels very lightweight, very kind of smooth. Their stabilizer is pretty powerful, the built-in stabilizer. And I think in general it's just a lot easier to get like clean, smooth strokes in Psy than it is in Photoshop. Now it's not impossible to achieve the same look in Photoshop, but it is, you kind of have to work for it. Just like how density, or not density, well yeah, so, you know, in Psy, something that's very unique about it is that there is no such thing necessarily as just straight up opacity. Opacity in Psy looks like this, when in something like Photoshop it has a very different look. So everything about this program feels different to use, and for me at least it feels just right for when I just want to do some like doodles or sketches in between work and I don't want to be worried about having this like, you know, all of these brushes and all of this other, you know, kind of like features and textures and whatnot, when all I need is just one solid like drawing brush. And I think Psy has that for me in like one single tool, and then I can just like enjoy my time drawing in this program that I don't really affiliate with work, and it's nice. I like having multiple programs that I have like a brush that I enjoy, so that I can just pick it up whenever I'm feeling tired of using the other ones, and it's a nice way to kind of force a change of pace, I guess. What's it like to be awesome and cool? Thank you. Do you ever go to stuff like Comic-Con or art gatherings and have booths to sell things? I don't. I did once. I tabled at Anime Expo one year and that was quite fun. But I have not since been involved in any conventions. I think it'd be fun to do one in the future, but I don't really make art that I think sells. So in the future I might just have like a online store or something as opposed to actually going to conventions. But it was really fun when I did it once. Do I draw much traditionally anymore? Not really. I haven't really touched a sketchbook in like a year or so. It's been quite a while. So we're done with that one. Sketch. Okay. Looks like that kid from Stranger Things. I'm like trying to like make it look like this guy, because this is like an actual person that I'm drawing. But I'm just like, he just looks like the one kid from Stranger Things, except in like season like 1. But it's okay. He's a cute kid. It's fine. Hey, Bree. Welcome, welcome. You guys, I use sketches when I need to. And I just don't draw props as often as I should. I mean, I do it for people too. You guys just don't see me drawing super ambitious poses. The truth unveiled. The jig is up, guys. I've been replaced. We're doing an underdrawing, guys. This is unprecedented. Sketches? Never. Couldn't be me. Which I say in absolute jest. Use sketches when you need to. I feel like some of the people that come to my stream occasionally get this impression that, like, to not draw with sketches is to, like, ascend. And it's like, not particularly. I don't think it's a necessarily, like, a good thing. But, you just so happen to catch me drawing stuff that generally are, at least for me, are things that I am relatively confident in drawing. But I feel like that just gives off this impression of, like, you should be trying to learn how to draw without sketches. Learn to only draw from imagination. That's the right way to go. And it's like, no, not really. Any encouragement for small artists trying to make art a career for themselves? Don't think too much about like the speed at which these things happen. I think a lot of people, when they see other successful artists or pre-existing artists on a platform, they assume that like this kind of stuff happens in like a consistent progression, not even fast, just consistent, right? And if it doesn't happen for you, then it means that you weren't meant to do it at all, which is not the case, right? There are a lot of factors that are kind of out of your control, but ultimately the things that you can control are well within your power, so long as you are honest with yourself, so long as you are trying to like be honest and genuine about what it is you're trying to achieve. Seek out resources that speak to you truly and aren't just like, hey, this is what every other person is doing, this is the popular like kind of way of thinking about this, like then this must be the right way to think about this, right? Don't feel the pressure to show results or to perform before you're ready, right? I think it's really easy to look at all these established artists and say like, you know, oh, they only did it in like half the time, or they did this and that, and I've been trying to do this and that and it's just not been working. And it's like there's a lot of unseen time investment that doesn't necessarily get translated super well. And I don't think you should punish yourself for what is essentially kind of, again, in like kind of stuff that is out of your control, and just try to focus on the stuff that is going to keep you in the game, is going to keep you like excited and passionate about the things that matter to you, because all of this ultimately is like all of this kind of falls apart for the people that, when they were trying to make it a career, replaced too many pieces of what they actually wanted, substituted way too many aspects of their like goal or passions or dreams, that even when they did get to that end goal, or even if they did get really close, it begins to crumble because they themselves didn't actually want to be a part of maybe that crowd or this style or drawn this way. And it is, I think, a lot better when you're first starting out to just go about it in a way that feels genuine and honest to you. Focus on what you can control, let go of the things that you can't. And be willing to shift directions if it'll best fit, like, you know, the direction of your life, if it'll kind of help you survive. I think it's important that you make decisions that are meant to help you create like an environment in which you can feel comfortable and focused and like supported. So if you're a small artist, a lot of things are happening in your life and it's kind of hard to focus, like, there are certain things, foundational things, that need to be in place for, I think, a lot of artists to be able to focus on art, right? Your basic needs in life have to be met in order for you to focus on something, which is ultimately a luxury. Art is not like the most straightforward like craft to make your life and make your life like, you know, focused on. So you know, forgive yourself for the time it takes, for the time investment you're gonna have to make. Don't punish yourself for the things that you don't have any control over, and allow yourself the dignity and the self-respect to just like be honest about the things that you generally care about, that you are passionate about, even if from a wider viewpoint, a wider audience, it is unmarketable, not profitable. I think it's the more you can establish for yourself what matters, the easier it is for you to learn the skills and tools you need to survive financially, survive in a market that is relatively competitive in some ways and somewhat collaborative in others. The sooner that you can establish for yourself what actually matters to you, what you enjoy doing, learning the skills, the marketable skills, learning to be an artist that has mass appeal and all that kind of stuff is a lot easier than to go the other way around. To be an artist that first learned mass appeal because they wanted to be a marketable artist, because they wanted to have a career that was, you know, financially like secure, because they went the route that every teacher told them, because it's a very mercurial place to work in. There's a lot of different projects always coming out that even though you might not originally think was like, oh, I didn't know, you know, a company would even want to do that, or I didn't know that like a project like that would even get greenlit, and you never really know if that's the case. So the sooner that you can figure out for yourself what it is that you actually want to be doing, the easier it is for you to craft the rest of your career around achieving that or getting close to that. So there's something in there for you. But I think the biggest thing is like, don't punish yourself for things that you can't control, like the amount of time it's gonna take, and the amount of investment and effort. It's like it's not easy to be like so painfully aware of every like moment that it's happening where things are not going well or things aren't like as, you know, it's not thriving as much as you want it to. But at least in my experience, when that was kind of at the forefront of my mind, it was a lot easier for me to focus on like, you know, this is what I want to accomplish. This is purely me and what I want with my life. And as I became more and more in line with that, the more I established that as like an unwavering part of my work, the easier it was for me to find work or be invited to work or offered the opportunity to work on things that are far more in line with my interests, and shaped my career in a way that was a lot more fitting for me, a lot more fitting for my kind of like future goals, I guess, while still allowing me kind of the experience of developing like my own idea for what my life should be, my own idea for my work. And I've only really started to learn to do that in the past like couple years, because before that it was all like, you know, why am I not like this? Why am I not as good as this artist? Or why am I not as accomplished or successful? And like, why don't I have these things? Or what like, did I do something wrong? Like, why can't I do that? And just kind of also feeling just ashamed or guilty or frustrated by the fact that by other people's standards, there are ways that I've succeeded and ways that I've failed. By my standards, there are ways that I succeeded and ways that I failed. And most of it became a completely null point once I recognized, like, the only thing that really matters is where I feel that I've succeeded and failed and what I want to do about that. So give yourself some grace. The time, the grace, the like, courtesy of, like, you are a developing human. You are a creative on the cusp of a lot of big things. But you should also keep in mind, like, all the things that actually are important, that matter to you, as opposed to just, I guess, pivoting to what people say you should do in order to be a successful career artist, because things can work in mysterious ways. I see you clearly haven't been here for every single time I've loudly complained every single time I've had to draw an instrument. The only reason why I'm quiet now is because I'm desperately trying to to put all of my recent attempts to learn and properly, like, figure this out instead of doing what I normally do and bitch about the fact that I hate drawing props. But yeah, people who've been in the streams for a while will know that I have a perpetual... specifically, I have a thing against guitars. I dislike drawing guitars. I've never been able to draw guitars. know if we're gonna be able to do many more, because I think this person also has another commission, and that one also has a guitar. So we might only be able to do 2 today. I just remembered the other one, and I was immediately hit with a sudden dread. Well, I have to draw the guitar. I can't not draw the guitar. Is that the guy that they asked for? Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised you got that. I was saying earlier that it looks like an adult version of the kid from Stranger Things. This is basically what he wears, I think. At least how I draw him. He's a real-life musician, from what I understand. But I don't know very much about him. Least favorite part. So if I haven't already gotten to the least favorite part. Like fucking I lost count. I'm dumb as hell. This is what I get for being incapable of counting. Look, I grew up with a dad who has played piano his whole life. I will never remember a damn thing about guitars. Piano? Guitars. He's played guitars his whole life. I can't talk. He's played guitars his whole life. We have like 3 right now. He used to have like 5. I will never remember a damn thing about a guitar. Ugh. Including, I dropped my pen. How many fucking lines are on the fretboard? Okay. Yes. I think it's supposed to be 22? But you know what? Fuck it. This is why I only draw characters wearing organic clothes and then nothing else. No props, nothing. Two more. Peach?
Miss Peach. Giving you a head pat.
If you type in... I think... There you go.
Tojo's got you.
It is so warm. Oh man, I don't know. 2 guitars in one night is a lot. I was like, we'll make good progress today. We did not. Not a bad idea. Do you have any advice on how to study hair? Hair very much operates similar to cloth or paper, where when you bend it or fold it, there are two sides to this like piece of paper or this piece of fabric. And so when you think about the idea of draping it over a ball, right, because our skull is curved and all of our hair kind of sprouts out of it, like you start thinking about it in terms of these strips instead of like individual strands. Clumping hair together, like putting them in decent chunks, will help you when it comes to actually grooming the hair and styling the hair to be like an effective silhouette or design element. And it's important to look at, when you're looking at hair and studying hair, you should look at it as in, how do I break this into simplified shapes or simplified parts? Because if you focus too much on how each individual strand is like you know, popping out from the silhouette or whatnot, then you might get super lost in the weeds about what's actually really important about what hair does for our face, which is frame it and then also create the outer silhouette of our skull, right? So both incredibly like important aspects of our like visual design of a character's you know, overall look. And the best way to study hair, I think, in my opinion, is to frame it from that perspective of like, this is a, you know, a thing that has mass, a thing that has multiple sides to it. So as it turns and shifts and is bent in space, you know, you have the idea that like this isn't just, you know, flat lines or like just whatever 2D shapes. These are three-dimensional kind of like clumps of hair that you can shape to create the design and the silhouette that you want. And when you study hair, it's important to be able to break down and interpret real hair, real photos of people's hairstyles and whatnot into their stylized, simplistic forms. That translation is going to help you understand how best to design the hairstyles for your characters so that they evoke the right image or the right kind of feeling in the facial area. So try to, like, when you go look at photos, try to simplify them down. When you're looking at hair, try to think about it like these things when they're turning in space, when they're curled, like there's you know, a front and a back to it, there's like an outside and inside to it, and as it turns, these two faces are like kind of showcasing the volume of hair. If you use like the paper analogy or the hair, not the hair, the fabric kind of idea of it, right? You're basically pinning a strip of paper, a strip of fabric from the skull, and then now that it's falling down with gravity and all that kind of stuff, like what is it doing? How does it interact with the shoulders or the ears or like how it's styled? There's the logic aspect to it, and there's the actual like reference, studying, simplifying, learning how people have done it, how you would like to do it, that kind of a thing. So it's a combination of like reference, but then also just kind of evaluating how you would like to interpret real world hairstyles into like the characters that you're drawing or whatever you're drawing, so that they best exemplify like the look and the feel that you're going for. And that comes from a kind of duo process of studying from actual photographs, studying from artists, and then also figuring out like what shapes are you trying to put down on paper, what kind of look and silhouette do you want to achieve, and they all kind of like go hand in hand with each other, I guess. Hey, Chama. You don't have to. I think as long as you like understand, like, here. The idea of there being a front and back face to something, right? When you think about hair, especially when it is in the kind of shape where it's curled, you have to think about it from the perspective of there is like a front and back to this mass. Right. It's also good to think about how when you're looking at like the face, or like a head, let's just say, you have to kind of act like it's this piece of paper or this piece of fabric that's draping over the forms that that are draping over the forms underneath it, right? So there's like this idea that it's got two sides, and that if you try to pretend that hair is strips of paper, you also have to think about like, okay, these clumps of hair, right? Versus when you're just drawing, it's the difference between like drawing someone's like bangs like this, right? And then drawing someone's bangs like this. So when you think about hair only as like two-dimensional flat lines or just lines in general, it's not like you can't make this happen, but the idea is that when you're first learning how to draw hair, if you're so focused on the fact that hair is made up of individual strands, you're going to forget the fact that as artists we have a responsibility to have a say and groom the shapes and the silhouette that we create using hair. Hair is an aspect, just as clothes are an aspect of creating silhouette. Hair is the way that we create a shape and design around the head and frames the face. So if you think about it from just like this kind of 2D line perspective of just drawing strands of hair, but with absolutely no regard to like the fact that there's a design to it or that it could create shapes within it as well, then you're missing out on a major part of what makes hair really useful as a design tool. When you think about hair like these major clumps, it helps you recognize the way that like each individual piece plays a part in recreating or creating a new kind of shape on top of the head. And so that's why I mentioned stuff like looking at real hairstyles and trying to simplify them to see what major shapes are there that you can use to help inspire you when you have to go about drawing a hairstyle. You don't automatically default to drawing strands of hair, you think about the shape that it creates. And then with the paper analogy, it's more paper or cloth analogy. It's more so that like understanding again that these are not just lines, these are not just like strands of hair. These are in fact like pieces with this outer facing layer, inner facing layer that show up whenever you do things like braid them, when you have curls, when you do like ponytails or buns. Like it uses this idea of there being an outer layer and an inner layer. And so when you start thinking about hair three-dimensionally, it helps you then on top of seeing shapes in hair as opposed to just strands, it'll help you contextualize like, okay, these are three-dimensional objects that interact with each other in a three-dimensional space. So what happens when the hair like lies flat on top of the shoulder or lies on the chest? It's gonna fold, right? Kind of like how when paper touches a table or when fabric touches a table, it starts to fold. It's not so much that it like you have to learn clothes and folds first, because that's actually I think a lot more complicated than hair. But the fact of like physics and gravity and like all these things kind of, they're very similar concepts when it comes to hair and cloth. And knowing that logic, and then also applying it to looking at actual references of hairstyles, it'll help you understand how to then interpret, like, I want to create a character with like braided side bang things. Okay, well, like, then you understand that, you know, when you're drawing this character, you're not just kind of haphazardly drawing shapes, right? You are trying to understand how these pieces interact with each other, right? The fact that, okay, well, when you do a braid, these are individual pieces wrapping and interweaving with each other. So you have to consider, like, okay, where is this, like, back half of the hair coming from? You know, these are all rounded pieces for the most part. Braids come out relatively rounded, flattened but round. And you start thinking about, like, okay, well, they're not just like V, you know, this shape. They're thinking about how this piece of hair goes on top of it, this goes underneath it, comes over, and it kind of repeats in this pattern of understanding the kind of top face, bottom face of each of these pieces, right? So this stuff is important. It all comes back together. The way that you study this, though, is not necessarily straightforward. It's just understanding that this is the logic behind how hair, as far as artists go, how they generally tend to interpret hair. And when you take the logic and you take actual kind of like interpretations of realistic hairstyles, right, and you yourself figure out, how do I want to quantify certain hairstyles? How much detail do I add to hair versus how little? How much do I want to stylize the shapes versus how little? Once you start to understand how you want to break that down based on artists that you look at or realistic photographs that you've kind of been learning to simplify, these core ideas of there being a front and back face will help and go hand in hand with helping you understand how these strands and clumps of hair interact with each other. Partially this is theory, partially this is actual reference. It's important to understand that, like, when I say that this is similar to something else, it's not so much that, like, both of these things necessarily have to be learned one before the other. It's just that they share very similar attributes in terms of physics, in terms of logic. So, yeah, that's basically that. I don't know how to end that, but yeah. Let's do... What is this on? It is relatively simpler. Okay. We'll do one more then. I just found the thought of shark teeth or shark-like teeth interesting because, like, we have two front teeth and then two teeth next to it, and then we have our incisors, right? And so it follows very similarly on the bottom. If you have shark teeth or shark-like teeth, right, where it's like all basically canine-like, does that mean you have like one tooth right in the middle of your mouth? Or is there like a gap? You know, and then you just don't have any teeth in the front of your mouth. I guess you do just have one tooth right in between the two front ones, but it's just kind of weird. I can never like wrap my head around it. It looks too weird to me. So when he opens his mouth, it's just his mouth is like this. It's just, yeah, I don't know. I don't understand like how we are meant to interpret like shark teeth when it's drawn, because like it's really easy just to do the whole like triangle thing, but a lot harder I think when you're trying to make it a little bit more concrete.
You don't know about real loss, because it only occurs when you love something more than you love yourself. I doubt you've ever dared to love anybody that much.
Night. Any advice for cleaner line art? Well, I guess it depends on what your habits are, because some people, their problem is that they try to put down too many lines in an attempt to like find the drawing, right? While I try to be very definitive about the lines I'm putting down in an attempt to like be more efficient. So when I put down a line, I'm trying to be very like conscious of its purpose, what it adds to the thing it's describing, if it's doing that adequately. And if it doesn't, I'll try drawing it over again. But I know some people will try and rinse and repeat, like, you know, drawing a line over and over on top of it, and then trying to find the one that's right. Or they will draw like too slowly or something like that. Like they'll kind of try to get it right the first time, and it results in like this kind of not super nuanced you know, line work that, while clean, is not necessarily evoking any nuance, it's not evoking any knowledge that you have about the understructures or the anatomy. So there's like a kind of fine line of hitting speed, of hitting kind of like that, like determined, this is what I want to put down, this is the information I want to communicate, and then also just like confidence and time investment. I am confident about the things that I'm drawing, so it makes it a lot easier for me to make these like big, you know, lines and not feel like I'm totally guessing. But then, you know, also I've had a lot of time invested in drawing and stuff like this, so that certainly helps as well. It's the All My Favorite Things song. Yeah. No. Oh, my music stopped. Woo. I suppose it did. Oh, and now Spotify's freaking out on me too. Oh no! I wonder why. Oh. Here it goes. What's your approach to visualize or twist objects in 3D in your head, especially with having an efficient process of manual sketching? So the biggest thing that helped me start to visualize things in like kind of a three-dimensional way was when I started paying attention to like 3D models or sculpture. I took a figure sculpture class one semester in college, and then I also took another ZBrush class one semester in college. And both of those really challenged me to start thinking about things from a more tangible perspective. Like literally imagining like, you know, a gray model of this character, because like, you know what people look like in three-dimensional space, you see them all the time, they move around. So it's not like you can't imagine a human in a three-dimensional way, or objects in a three-dimensional way, but it's more so that you've never had to try to translate that into something that was useful for drawing. So when I actually started to like really consider, as I'm kind of like trying to imagine it in my head, I try to really emphasize this idea of like not only imagining the image of it, but really kind of embodying maybe the pose or the energy that I'm currently drawing. Like when you're drawing a figure, do you feel grounded? Do you feel like you're sitting or standing? Do you feel the tension in the arm? It's like there's all these ways to make something feel more tangible to you, so that when you translate it visually, it feels just a little bit more real. So when I'm drawing these shapes, I'm trying to think about not only in how they look from this angle, but also like what am I implying with each line? What am I implying by choosing to draw this and not choosing to draw that? What do I say when I, you know, kind of indicate this fold or this overlapping the other? What's the distance between these two things? I try to rationalize that while I'm drawing, so that when I like take an overall look at it, I can say this doesn't feel like it's properly communicating the kind of three-dimensional aspect of this pose that I originally envisioned or had assumed that I was working towards. This looks a little too shallow, right? Because in 2D we can create all sorts of illusions to three-dimensionality, but you know, we can so easily make something appear as if it's in front of something else, but when you actually look at it, the way, the closeness, how it's proportioned and all that kind of feel as if in reality these two would be like colliding with each other, and there's no way they'd actually like coexist in a space. So it's really just reasoning through these things based on my experience with looking at three-dimensional objects, like models, like sculptures. Oh no, it stopped again. Maybe it's my internet. Maybe my internet's kind of rough. It's been rough this week, yeah. For some reason, I don't know. I mean, oh. Well, it says I'm offline on YouTube, which is very strange, because I don't know. Maybe YouTube's just having a hard time. Okay, well, then I will go on Spotify, I guess. Wait, I need to go to... Because my Spotify, I don't think, will open. Because I think it's having a temper tantrum, so I'm gonna end it. And then... Oh. Apparently it's installing Spotify now. Yeah, I don't know. We've had issues with our internet lately. Like, we've been playing Splatoon, and for some reason we keep getting kicked out, which I know is a thing that Splatoon's been suffering from a little bit, but at the same time, it's like, is it us? Our internet kind of sucks. Maybe it's us. Here. We'll just do that. Yeah, I mean, I just know that, like, our internet is not considered, like, very good or stable anyway, so if there are interruptions and stuff, it's not necessarily surprising that that's the case. I wonder if that's possible with an apartment. I think Gary's mentioned it before, but I mean, soon I might be not working at home as much, so but I do stream, so having good internet is still pretty important. It does kind of seem like Chrome is struggling to load as well, so maybe it's my internet. Well, I guess if we drop, you guys will know why. But so far it doesn't seem like anything's... Like, I don't get any dropped frames listed on OBS, so I don't know. Yeah, the stream's looking fine, which is wild to me. I'm so used to the stream being the first thing that goes down, but maybe it's the sign telling me that I can just finish off this commission and we can call it a day, so that my internet can, like, I don't know, take a break or something. It's like on its last legs and it's like, finish it off. Go for it. We only have one option for internet though, so. Icons. Okay. We can call this one done. So we got 2 done plus the chibis. That's not the worst. Hopefully next time we will not struggle so much. So this next week will be my first week at my new job, so there will be no streams on Monday and Wednesday. But there will be a stream on Friday, so we'll be back to just doing our Friday streams. I'm sure you guys have had enough of me. So we're going back to that just on Fridays, hopefully 7 to 10 like normal, maybe slightly longer depending, but 7 to 10 is I think the normal time. But yeah. Thank you guys for sticking around, for coming by. I will end it here because I got some stuff. Oh yes, I was gonna share about my last job. I kind of already mentioned it. I was a contractor working on a working on the digital component of 1D&D, which is the upcoming D&D. I don't know what it is, just like the new era of D&D, I guess. So yeah, that was my last thing that I was doing for the past like year. So I was working with Wizards of the Coast. I can't necessarily say what I worked on, but I didn't do anything in regards to like playtesting or whatever, like not rules. I did a lot of concept work for that. So it's out. I can actually say that that was a thing I did. But I can't say what I did or show anything. But yeah, so that's what I worked on. And maybe next Friday I will tell you guys where I'm working now. Because I want to at least be there for like a week before I say that I work there. Just because it doesn't feel like it's gonna happen just yet, so I need a full week of like orientation before I'm like, okay, so maybe I am employed here. But yeah, so I'll let you guys know. But thank you very much for hanging out with me. Thank you for sticking around, for hanging out and asking questions. It's all very lovely. Again, next Friday will be the next stream that we do, so hopefully I'll see some of you guys there at least. But if not, or if so, I hope your upcoming weekend is lovely, and hopefully you have some time to rest and take a break, and that your upcoming week is also equally not super stressful, that you get to do something fun, eat some good food, yeah, and take care of yourselves. I will talk to you all on Friday, but stay happy, stay healthy, and I will see you all then.